Welcome to Tabletop Tommies. I'm Jonny,
And I'm Phil.
and in today's episode, we're following on the Armies of V3 series. We did Belgium. We're now looking at an army very similar, the French. So I guess we'll just jump straight into this time, shall we, Phil?
Yeah, let's go for it. I like the French in V2, so I'm interested to see what they might be like in V3.
Yeah, I always had a soft spot for the French, even though they were lacking the big guns of the late war. So looking back to V2, the characteristics they had were the classic communication breakdown, same as the Belgians, with if the first dice is yours, your opponent can make you put it back in. That's the very first dice of the game, not every turn. Forward artillery doctrine, free artillery piece, and hurriedly conscripted reserves. Every 3 inexperienced squads you took, you got 1 free. They've changed quite a bit though, haven't they, Phil?
Yeah, they have. So it's along the same lines of there's no such thing as a free unit in V3. So the forward artillery doctrine is now here, which is if you have a forward artillery observer, you can call in a barrage twice per game rather than once. So you resolve the first one, and then once that's resolved, you can call in a second. Next one is the highly motivated reserves, which allows any inexperienced unit that has 1 or more pins to take a test to lose 1 pin if there are enemies within 12 inches immediately before an order is given, which is very much like the British Vengeance. And again, like the British Vengeance on a 4+, you lose a pin. If you only have 1 pin and you clear that pin, you still test, but you're testing on your base morale of 8. Yeah. And that's basically it in terms of Army special rules. You get access to the VB launcher as well, which is a slightly shorter version of a light mortar, but you can embed it into rifle teams, rifle squads.
Yeah, so a bit of a loss for the French there, much like the Belgians. I mean, exactly the same as the Belgians, basically, because we're following the same pattern that the V2 rules are basically the same and the V3 rules are basically the same.
I
But the
think
thing, oh, go on.
it's fairly major loss because generally speaking, for French in V2, there's probably 2, maybe 3 builds, but certainly one of the builds was to stack out your inexperienced squad so that you got the extra free one. And on top of that, you're getting the free howitzer. You took a medium howitzer. That's gone, it'd be interesting to see if the alternative build or one of the other sort of commonly seen builds is still viable in V3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the unit choices were also good. The
Mm.
early war motorcycle, which when we get to armored cars, we'll see if it still exists. That was a real winner for the French because you're whizzing around with 3 bikes in the 1 slot. And pair that with the extra artillery piece, you had both the long and the sort of the short range harassing. So I guess we'll see how the units are looking to see if anything like that's still feasible.
Yeah.
Skipping HQ because there's not much there. It's your officers at the veteran sees,
Yep.
forward observer, as mentioned, but you can have an air one worth noting.
Yeah. Different to Belgium in the last episode.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you would though, because then you're giving up on the forward artillery doctrine
Yeah.
special rule.
Hmm. But you
Uh,
can if you want to.
but you and a medic, and then into the infantry proper. Are there any noticeable losses, Phil, or anything? Any noticeable carries either way?
So it's essentially what was in the Armies of France and Allies book. The losses is the engineer section, which appeared in Battle of France, I believe.
Indeed, yeah.
So that's why we don't see it in the PDF. Again, and this as in a gain, not as in again. Again, is the option of taking inexperienced tough fighters. So your basic infantry section, the Senegalese are basically baked into the options for your infantry section. So you can upgrade them for 1 point per man to give them tough fighter, which is how you get Senegalese tirailleurs. But you can do that in V3 with the PDF to inexperienced squads.
Which is interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, you're only going to get 11 men. So your basic size is 5 men. You can add up to 6. But you can have, 11-man inexperienced tough fighter squads, which could be quite cool.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also save a point by giving the NCO pistol,
Mm-hmm.
which, if you're going to be running around sort of goading people into charging you,
You
isn't the end of
don't
the world.
necessarily need your 11th rifle. Yeah.
Yeah, and now on that sort of note of now that they've rolled everything in, and
Mm.
because I'm not sure the intention was to let people have inexperienced
Inexperienced
Senegalese,
tough fighters as Senegalese. No.
but what you
No.
could also do is make them engineers as well,
Yes.
and so that you don't get the defender positions when they're charging a building.
Yeah.
Um,
You could have 11-man inexperienced engineers with an NC over pistol just to make it even cheaper, just charging into buildings. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, even if we ignore the charging at buildings thing, you're essentially paying an 11 points tax per squad just
Yeah.
to open up access to the engineer platoon.
Hmm.
Mind you, I don't really see why you would particularly want to do that because spoilers, there's no flamethrower team
There's
in the
no
team
flamethrower. No.
section.
No.
So not only have we lost the flamethrower engineers, we've also lost the flamethrower team. And I
Because
believe,
I didn't that come in Battle of France
well, I was going to say the
rather.
opposite. I think that they actually had it in the main, but I'm just going to quickly check now. Yeah, so the French armies of France didn't have a flamethrower team. You're absolutely right. That's
Yeah.
why they haven't got it in the team slot either.
Yeah. And that's a good general point. But yeah, if people are sort of scratching their heads looking at the Minor Nation PDFs, going, well, where have these options gone? If they weren't in the original lists, most of which are in the armies of France or the armies of Italy, they don't appear in the PDFs because they're basically just ported over from those initial lists. So anything that came out in campaign books for the minor nations and indeed for the major nations in the V3 rulebook are not appearing at this point in V3. We've got to wait for the armies of books.
Yeah. I mean, the French do have access to lots of, just jumping back to what they do have,
Hmm.
they've got access to troops at all veterancy
Yep.
with all the special rules because you can have the Foreign Legion stubborn veterans, you can
Hmm.
have the Group
Mar-
Franc with SMGs, you can
yeah.
have the Moroccans with tough fighter veterans,
Yeah.
and you can even have motorcycles, which are still terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I think compared to some of the other minor nations, the French have a good variety of troop options, and I quite like the fact you've got the Group Franc section, which can also represent the SES, the GIA, and the Chasseur Alpine. Depending on where you slant it, effectively it is a veteran unit. You may want to add skis, which will make them Chasseur Alpine. If you want to have veterans stubborn units, well, that's your Foreign Legion. If you want to have veteran tough fighters, that's your Moroccan Goumier. If you want to have your regular tough fighters or inexperienced, that's your Senegalese infantry section. So you do have a lot more options in your basic infantry sections. Yeah.
And we do as well have cavalry as the other unmentioned
Yes.
one there,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah. Yeah.
because of the assault rules now, they're not what they once were, but still having one squad that can whip around and just harass people
Yeah.
is quite a nice option to include.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in terms of your team weapons, you've got a medium MG, you've got mortar teams. You can't take a heavy, just light or medium. You've got your AT rifle, and you've got your sniper team. So the core stuff is there, and there's a good choice, a good range of infantry sections too.
Yeah, it does mildly annoy me that everyone has to pay 2 extra points for a sniper now.
Yeah, I'm
Because
assuming that's the infiltrator special rule that.
no, I think it's for the pistols. That's what I think they did it for because V2 US used to pay 52 points and then pay 2 points per man to upgrade to SMG. So the fact that the pistols in basically, I think they did it for the pistols, but now pistols are pointless. And so, to be honest, the reason I don't like it is just because it makes all your lists like 2 points over if you're going for a regular list, because nothing else in your regular list, unless you're taking two SMGs, I suppose, to
Mm.
balance it out. Um, but that's just an admin gripe rather than anything else. Artillery. French are famous for their artillery, so they must have some good stuff here, Phil, do they?
Yeah, so you've got your light, medium, and your heavy howitzers, which you can take with gun shields if they are. Well, actually, all three can take gun shields, and you can take spotters for medium and heavy. So, yeah, that hasn't gone away. That's all good. AA side of things, you can take a light autocannon. You can add a second to it if you wanted to. Can't take a heavy autocannon. So interesting compared to Belgium, where you can only take the heavy autocannon. Here with the French, you're looking at light autocannons. And then your anti-tank guns, you can go for a light or a medium or a low velocity light as well. So, yeah, bit of choices there. They all come with a gun shield. Um, Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what you need. You know, obviously, we actually should have said this, that this is very much very early war French. You know, this is not reflecting the options that appear in North Africa, so 1942 and so on. It's not representing Vichy particularly, and it's definitely not representing late war. So this is very much the armies of France and allies list, which was, you know, early war.
Yeah, I am hoping when we see the French proper in a
Mm,
proper publication, we roll all of that together. That would be really nice because
yeah.
even in V2, we had a lot of representation for all the different French in all the different parts of the war, but it was across multiple different sources. And I think it'd be really nice now that V3's out to use this as an opportunity to combine all those French into one big tome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you've got your early war, you've got your mid war in terms of North Africa. You've also got Vichy as well. You've got your late war post, sort of 1944, 1943, and obviously we saw with Tough Gut, didn't we, that there was a whole host of Free French units that appeared, but in Tough Gut they sat under U.S. Army choices. Which certainly caused a ripple through the community as to why they weren't available as French unit choices rather than US only unit choices.
Yeah. Shall we move into tanks?
Yeah, I mean, tank wise, it's as was, isn't it? I don't think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think France got access other than the Free French in Northwest Europe. I don't think the French got any new tanks in any of the campaign books. They got armored cars in the North Africa book, which don't appear at all. But your FTs are there, your chars are there, your Somuas are there, your AMC 35, and so on. So all the your Renaults as well, your R35s, etc. So pretty much anything that you would have taken in an early war French list is still there. You've got your Porties, your soft skin tank destroyers with forward or rear facing AT guns and so on. So cannot complain there at all.
The big boys are still there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what I'm taking, to be honest, in V3 with the French in terms of tanks. Probably the FT
Uh,
again.
yeah, if I'm gonna have to take tanks, it's gonna be the FTs, but I'm not gonna take a tank given the choice.
Yeah, the thing that I've been just having a look through is I like when the machine gun isn't coax, it's on the
Yeah,
bow, so you can have your two
split
pins
fire, two
basically.
pins. Yeah.
A lot of them, a lot of the cheaper ones, it's all coax MG,
Hmm.
which is a bit of a shame, but which is why I think I'm going to stick with the FT.
Okay.
Armored cars. Do I get my early war motorcycle, Phil?
No. Next question. You don't, which is also reflective of the fact that they didn't exist in the Armies of France book. They appeared in Battle of France, to be fair. Yeah, which is a shame. And I was going to say this earlier that one of the features of French lists in V2 was the ability to take a high order dice count list because you get your free inexperienced squad if you go down that route. You get your free howitzer and you get the 3-for-1 deal on the motorbikes. So it was possible to run high dice count lists in V2. Not having access to the early war and motorcycle is it's not taking it away, but it's certainly not allowing it as easily as you used to be able to.
Absolutely. What they do still have access to, though, are the panhards and the other, like, reasonably priced armored cars. So, sort of around 100 points, and you're getting
Yeah,
either a light or a low velocity light anti tank gun, coax MG. But
yeah,
the big benefit is you're wheeled and you've got
yes.
recce, so you can just whiz around people.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Panhard, the 178. I loved it in V2. I like it in V3. It's wheeled, it's got recce, it's got a light AT gun. You can get around the sides of things, you can get into the rear of things. That's why, if I had to take tanks, I'd take an FT, but actually I'd probably run 4 or 5 Panhards if I was going down an armored French route. Because they are annoying, but having the light anti-tank gun rather than a light auto cannon, which other nations have that sort of armor 7 recce autocannon option. The French don't. I'm going to go for a panhard.
Yeah. And do you know what? Because it's 105 for the 175 with the low velocity, 115 for a full velocity light anti tank gun. I actually think it might even be worth trying to save some points there and go on low
Go
velocity
for the
because,
low
as you say,
velocity.
I'm going to use it to whiz around the back of the tanks. And so maybe I save my 10 points there. I guess it depends on the rest of the build.
Yeah, and it depends on how many you're going to take as well, because 4 or 5 low velocity, um, you should be fine. The Mad Bob does a lovely model. I've got the Panhard 165, 167 from Mad Bob. It's a really nice model. It looks very, very basic, and that's not a reflection on Mad Bob. It's a reflection on the vehicle itself. It's got character. I like them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically all of your armor. You do have some interesting transports still, but similar
Yeah,
sort
so
of vibe to the Belgians.
the Lafley was really cool in V2. So it because you could take the Lafley S15 or the V15, which was a 5-man transport with an MG. That was cool because you could potentially put your engineers in. You drive them up, you're dishing out a load of shots with your MG, out pop your engineers. Now, there's various reasons why you're not going to do that anymore. One, there's no engineers. Two, it's soft skin, so it's gonna go. But if you want a cheap MG platform, shoving Lafleys in as transports and putting MGs onto them is not a bad shout. Like they're gonna, yeah, they're squishy because they're soft skin, but the S20TL, you could have 2 pintle mounted medium MGs, which I did on occasion use, and they're quite good fun.
Yeah, I was the V15.
Mhm.
And I liked that transport more than the Dodge carriers even.
Mhm.
And the limitation of it was the fact that it's in the French army. And
Yeah,
so in V2, you could only have one engineer squad, which meant I never really need to run more than one V15.
yeah.
But if for every engineer squad, I if I'd been able to include more than one, they would have all had V15s with them. And I actually don't mind the fact that the soft skins just disappear now because, to be honest, even in V2, I wasn't banking on them surviving very long anyway. They're very
No.
much sort of a drop off. If they survive, then they'll continue just harassing, but I'm expecting to lose them basically.
Mm. Did you like them because they were only 5 men, and that's all you needed them to be?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
rather than paying for the 8 in the Dodge. Yeah,
exactly, you're saving, I think it's 6 points. I think it's costed 2 points a slot. And so the benefit of the Dodge was you could put a bazooka in with them or an officer to help you get on the table. But actually, with just one engineer squad, I found perfect 5-man capacity. That's exactly how many seats I need.
yeah,
We've got a
yeah,
VUD
and
again. Oh, sorry.
yeah, you got the Burliette, yeah, which is great. I used to enjoy having my engineers in the Burliette with an officer and jumping out. Yes, engineers can't do that anymore. And also you don't get access to a bunch of SMGs in your infantry section. So what you can't do is sort of stack your SMGs. Your group frag, you can take 4. Like
That's what I was going to say.
it's
Took
all
the words
right.
out of my mouth.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all right. It's not like all the SMGs, outpop the Burliette, but it's not terrible. But yeah, Burliette again, and that's a cool model as well. I like that too.
It
Um,
pairs very nicely with the Panhard, to be fair.
yeah,
They look like they belong in the same sort of army, don't they?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then you've got your Citroen Caprice half track, so up to 5 men, 7 plus. You can make it into Lorraine 38, which is a 12-man half track. And then there's a couple of fully enclosed armor tractors, if you so desire.
Perhaps, I guess,
Yeah,
if you just want to put out a pin, but you're paying quite a lot of points to put out that pin, aren't you?
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure I would take it, but if you're the sort of person who likes to have your artillery pieces mobile rather than just that initial movement onto the board or deployment onto the board, you've got those options. And the fact that it's 7 plus means it's not gonna get blown up and cause your artillery piece to just be stranded as easily as a soft skin would be.
Absolutely. The universal units, do we have a horse in there?
Yes. You don't have a mule. There's no mules. Let's have a look.
Nah.
You
Oh, there is a horse-drawn limber.
Yeah, yeah. Trucks, yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
This,
no mules in V3 yet.
yeah. You see, that's if I was the type of person who wanted all my guns to have transports, I'd be looking at the main rule book at the universal units and putting
Yeah.
that horse-drawn limber in instead because Those armored tractors are going to add a lot of points to my list.
Yeah, and that's nice to think if you're running an early war French list and you've got, you've lent into the artillery side of things, and they're being towed by horse-drawn limbers. That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Lots of really good modeling opportunities there as well.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great.
So, how would you run your French V3 list, Johnny?
I don't know. There's no engineers, so I genuinely, I think I'd run them like the Belgians, and I would go lots of FTs with low velocity anti-tank guns because they're cheap. 300 points gets you five of them. Put them in outflank, I guess, for fun. And then now the thing that's interesting with the French is I don't have to lean on the cavalry anymore. I can mix it up with general infantry. I
Mm.
did like your idea of the inexperienced tough fighters. I thought that was quite a cheeky little idea.
Yeah.
Especially if you run them in little squads, little 5-man squads for 40 points to fighters.
Okay.
That's going to be quite good for just sort of hanging around the backfield, isn't it? But I think I might be more tempted by maybe going to the Foreign Legion, just so I've got stubborn. And
Yeah, yeah,
then similar sort of idea, they're going to be hard to shift.
yeah.
My tanks, get rid of tanks. The problem with all that said is I don't know what's doing the majority of the killing. Like I don't have in that combo, I don't have anything that's really going to be wiping units. So, but equally, I don't really want to pay the price for a howitzer. So I guess I throw in an FAO and then pray for the best.
Yeah, I think that would be where I would go. I wouldn't go down the howitzer route. So certainly in V2, I was running big squads of Senegalese, Foreign Legion. Uh, I'd never took the inexperienced squads to get the free inexperienced squad, but I did
Mm,
take the howitzers. It's just I don't play with inexperienced squads and never have done. Never really got my head around them. I think with V3, I would definitely take the forward observer. I definitely take the foreign legion, not necessarily all foreign legion, but I like the ability just to drop a load of stubborn units onto an objective. And depending on how cheesy I was feeling, I would either run really big squads of inexperienced tough fighters, 4 or 5 of them, or I'd run them as regulars, which is how I used to run the Senegalese. And I'd be using panhards and I'd be using AT rifles, probably a heavy weapons platoon with a couple of mortars. So again, quite mixed bag. So like certainly not leaning into one thing because I don't think the French have that one thing that you can strongly lean into. Um, but it would be more. It wouldn't be as like spread as the Belgium list would be.
yeah.
Plus, I've
I
got the models as well.
I actually might change my mind on the fly here because I've just been thinking about it and I've been as we're talking about sort of universality and being able to do different things. The chars are actually quite an interesting idea here, where you've got something like the B1, where you've got the light anti-tank and the light howitzer. So maybe if I take at least one char with some FTs and support, because you can't take too many chars, otherwise that's your whole army
It's your
basically.
whole army, yeah,
But at least because you've got the light howitzer there, the 2-inch templates that can fire direct,
yeah.
you might be able to do some killing there. And maybe
Mm,
it's actually I do supplement it with some cavalry to mop squads up. Because I think that's the thing I'm going to struggle with the French is I'll whittle units down, but then the last 2 or 3 men will be really hard to clear. And so maybe I just need that cavalry to mop them up.
mm,
Hmm.
yeah,
But
interesting.
watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
If you know how to play French, drop it in the comments.
yeah. Again, I'd be interested to hear how people are doing it. I haven't used my French. I've used them a couple of times in, yeah, just kind of as we were first playing and getting used to the rules, but I haven't taken them to any events. I would like to because I like them. I, you know, featured the North Africa French on the pod before. They are currently sat on the shelf, not doing a lot. So it would be nice to be able to bring them out and give them a go next year.
Yeah, mine are the way that I was running mine is now not viable. Also, mine
Mm,
also on the shelf because I was maximizing the dice with the free howitzer, taking 2 platoons so I could have a triple howitzer, extra inexperienced squad, taking all the motorcycles and engineers, and so none of the things that I used to do with the French are still available. And
yeah,
so I think I probably will be waiting until they get more coverage before mine come out of the cupboard.
yeah. So that's our take on the French in V3. Again, we'd be interested to hear what you guys think. If you are running them, drop us a comment, drop us an email, drop us a message on Facebook.
And if you're enjoying the pod, please do drop us a like or subscribe. Both help us spread the word. Until next time, though, ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta for now.